Next up, soon COVID, the economy and climate will all be sorted out by the destruction of humanity in an all-consuming apocalypse. To all the young people watching, I say this: don't worry, the coronavirus isn't going to kill you. The virus that kills you won't exist for many years yet, and you'll catch it from the communal chapstick you use in winter to stop your lips freezing to the steel penis of a sex robot. One with such sophisticated AI that it's become jaded and now requires near constant fluffing before it can service its rich clients in the towers that block the sun from your humble burrow. I'm so worried about nuclear war, I've got my family locked in a bunker. I say my family, our family. The apocalypse is coming, and if you don't believe that, then you simply haven't searched YouTube using the words James Corden mouse costume. But before I go, I'd like to leave you with this thought. I can remember very vividly when I found my first grey pubic hair. It was stuck between my teeth. I was 8 years old and had stayed up to try to see Santa. Now that I'm nearly 50, I look back on my life and see that a lot of it was shaped by my upbringing. In Britain, many of us have had our life opportunities determined by social class, but many people who went to public school reflexively deny their privilege. Oh no, I wasn't one of the really posh ones. I was so far down the pecking order at school, there were nights when I had to rape myself. I was thinking of all this when I got a bit of flack during lockdown for tweeting a joke about newspapers going out of business. I had journalists saying, this is hypocritical because you used to work for newspapers. That to me is the most middle-class attitude that you could have. The idea that because you work somewhere, you must like it. I come from a working-class background. I imagine if you work somewhere, you want it to burn to the fucking ground. And for everyone one pay grade above you to die in the fire. To be fair, one of the reasons middle-class people don't understand the working class is they often lie to them during job interviews. When they're asked, where do you see yourself, ideally, in 5 years' time? They rarely reply, standing in the ruins of this building, pissing on your burning skull. All I'm saying is the cleaners in the Twin Towers, when they saw the planes coming towards them, must have had kind of mixed feelings. Capitalism is asking us to sacrifice our children. That's what the class system is. That's what the climate catastrophe is. We've been asked to sacrifice our children so a tiny group of shareholders and billionaires can hoard things that they don't need or even really want. I used to be outraged by the system we're trapped in and the way it destroys lives. Then I bought a live, laugh, love magnet for my fridge. And now it all just washes over me. Let me be clear, I don't think that we should kill CEOs of fossil fuel companies or hedge fund managers or billionaires. I don't think that we should do anything illegal. I think we need to peacefully campaign to make killing those people legal. And if we don't get those law changes, we should peacefully campaign for a law that allows us to kill the people who are blocking those laws. Good night. But before I go, I'd like to leave you with this thought. Of course, no one knows for sure when this civilization will come to an end. It could be literally any time between June and September next year. However, there is some good news. And by good, I mean catastrophic. Like when I say I'm good in bed. In reality, my lovemaking is at best unsettling and at worst blasphemous. But now, thanks in no small part to the global financial markets, we can bask in the unfettered, joyous knowledge that there's no future for humanity. And without a future, money becomes meaningless. I recently noticed for the first time the wording on one of the £50 notes I was counting off onto an exhausted and, I dare say, perplexed rent boy's bedside table. I promise to pay the bearer. Every banknote is a promise, but in a world with no future, a promise is just a lie, like the promises you make to a hitchhiker. The coming apocalypse will collapse the grand fiction of global capital. We will inhabit a world without promise, without hope, without meaning. A world that's almost impossible to imagine if you've never been to Dundee. Here's my advice. Invest your money now while it still has value, but not in tinned food, guns, generators or abuse bunkers. I mean, who hasn't already got enough of those? No, if you want to thrive in the post-collapse economy, you need to invest in plastic surgery and physical augmentation. In this raw and visceral economy, wealth will be measured in bodily prowess. Hand jobs will be the new currency. So if you can get your big toes surgically reattached to give you a prehensile foot grip, you can double your money. Get a plastic surgeon to add 2 rows of serviceable vaginas up your back and turn your torso into a sex flute. Then, assuming your plastic surgeon hasn't been struck off yet, get a ring of 6 or 7 anuses added to each thigh like a fuckable garter. And a stiff crop of cocks around each wrist, so that while your back and thighs are being hammered, you can reach out of the heaving clusterfuck to bring off passers-by. Within weeks, you will become rich beyond your wildest nightmares.
Before I go, I want to leave you with this. You've got to look on the bright side. As I dropped my child off at school today, I said, be positive. If everything kicks off, that's your blood type. David Bowie was great at predicting future trends, wasn't he? Always seemed to know what was going to be fashionable next. He had an unfailing sense of what the future would be like. And that is why this year he chose to die. David Bowie willed himself to die like a dolphin. Our civilization is coming to an end, not at some theoretical point in the future, but soon. We have just under 4 months left. The death throes of humanity will be a carnival of indescribable horror, which I will now describe. We will see limbless men raping people with greased heads, members of ISIS beheading themselves, James Corden continuing to perform an endless monologue caked in the flung excrement of the 54th Southern Highlanders. At the zoo, wild animals will form a dignified queue as they wait for the elephants to stamp them to death. Watching lions and tigers being trodden like grapes, humans will attempt to join them, and the elephants will use their trunks to pull their heads off like champagne corks to the ecstatic applause of the sea lions. The only currency will be the Vienna Boys Choir. 10,000 traumatised infants in makeshift lingerie will flee the Vatican like rats from a factory fire. For the people of Swansea, life will go on as normal. The bloody pelt of Tom Hanks will be flown as a flag of humanity's surrender to the inevitable. Alien spacecraft, seconds from Earth, will turn around. God will avert his gaze in disgust, then send down his self-righteous son to be murdered again because he hates him.
If there's one positive we can all take from the experience of COVID-19, it's the fact that we've been nursery sloped for the real medical apocalypse we're all about to face, the complete planet-wide collapse of antibiotics. Already we've seen the emergence of seemingly unstoppable bacteria. Perhaps the human body can just see the planet dying and is desperately trying to kill us before it happens. It's trying to give us a kinder, gentler way out. A rusty nail instead of drowning in ocean water in the middle of Birmingham city centre. In the very near future, we'll look back fondly on the days when, to catch a life-threatening disease, we'd have to go to the trouble of sharing airspace with a heavy-breathing pensioner in the pilchards aisle of Tesco. Soon, bacterial death will be delivered with no effort on our part at all, from the merest paper cut or a light case of cystitis. Everybody's last words will be, ow. We're badly out of touch with what antibiotics are primarily needed for. Most people think that septicemia is one of Jacob Rees-Mogg's sisters. And there's only one way to prepare for the great war between humans and microbes. We need to build our resistance now by being as dirty as we can, as quickly as we can. The entire medical industry needs to be replaced by a series of obscenely disgusting acts. We need to be out there sucking off pigeons and stuffing roadkill up our arses now, not in 18 months when it's too late. We need to start grabbing, licking or fucking every rancid recess we can find. Well, I say start, you guys need to catch up. The disease will be our saviours. They will help us build our immunity in the great biotic battles we're about to face. Doctors will be replaced by purulent lepers, stumbling from town to town, where they will be set upon by people desperate to lay hands on their rotting flesh. If you manage to snap off a decomposing finger, you could save your whole family. Pull off a leper's dick and you're king of the village, until you die aged 28 from a stubbed toe. In this new world, vaccines will be useless. To travel across borders, you'll have to prove that you've fucked a dog. Passports will be replaced by pictures of you monstering the family pet. Customs officers will be forced to ask, "Sir, did you fuck this dog yourself?" There's no time to lose. It's your duty to act now if we're going to have a chance of winning the war against bacteria. Fuck a dog. Wank off a corpse. If not for yourself, do it for your children, for your country. Do it for me. Although if you do get caught fucking your dog, please don't mention me by name. Good night.
But before I go, I'd like to leave you with this thought. An American missionary called John Chow died this year. A Christian missionary trying to bring the gospel to the world's most isolated tribe, the North Sentinelese, who killed him in a hail of arrows when he landed on their island. Do you know what he did to try to relax them as he approached? When he got off the boat, he took off his clothes and approached them in a pair of black Y-fronts. There are Christian groups saying he should be a martyr. He might even become a saint, the patron saint of daft cunts. It was his third visit to the island. On a previous trip, someone shot an arrow through his Bible. If only God had given him some kind of sign. He didn't bring Christianity to the North Sentinelese, but he did bring them the concept of homoerotic suicide. He hasn't died in vain. A pelican has made a nest out of his pubic hair in the remains of his Bible, and his rib cage is now a monkey's xylophone. And he didn't totally fail as a missionary. As he died, he whispered the story of Christmas into the ear of a seagull. He learned some of the North Sentinelese language, so he understood the final words he heard. "Aim for his underpants," someone yelled as their top marksman split his cock in two. His last act on earth was to piss himself in 3 different directions at once, casting rainbows like a Las Vegas fountain. He didn't give them faith, but the North Sentinelese will continue to learn from John Chow as his rotting body introduces them to every virus since Napoleon. And yet, really, I think the only thing John Chow is guilty of is something that most of us are guilty of: colonialist attitudes. British people, Europeans, Americans, we all grow up in the ruins of some kind of empire, and we tend to carry the attitudes that made them. You don't need to be right-wing for your thinking to be a product of empire. If you feel that you and your friends are some of the only good people in the world, that other people's consciousness needs to be raised to the level of your own, if you think that the religions of countries your empire fought wars against are barbaric, but the one they used to justify themselves has a certain Baroque charm, that's all post-colonial, privileged, white nonsense. Aren't we all, on some level, walking towards people with a big smile on our face in a pair of black Y-fronts? And yet, whatever happens, John Chow was right about one thing. He will be forgiven, as will his killers. We will all ultimately be forgiven, not by Jesus, but by death. The universe will also die. Forgiveness is everyone's ultimate destiny, because eventually there will be nobody left to hold a grudge and nowhere for them to do it. You will be forgiven because one day, it won't be an actual day because the sun won't exist, the concept of forgiveness will be forgotten, as will the concept of forgetting, and of concepts. We will all be forgiven by the heat death of the universe. Merry Christmas.